I want to talk about some storytelling techniques and how there's different ways we can arrange a story and build a story to invoke different emotion. So we saw the structure of a story, right? Beginning, middle, climax, end. Who said it had to be in that order, though? So telling something sort of in a different order can change the perception of how a story is, how you feel a story. And sometimes I always say when you have the footage, once you've shot the story, once you capture all the footage, now the editor has control over where the story, how it's going to unfold and what parts go where. And this really is going to be an interesting part because it's not about what happened, it's about the story you want to tell. And that's always very important to understand because just like with the Photoshop thing, what happened there is a dude sat at a computer and taught a girl Photoshop for 2.5 hours. But that's not the story I told. I dressed it up, I put a story around it, right? So, storytelling, like we had this slide up before, the viewer's role is put the story together and understand it, and it's the filmmaker's role to give them the proper pieces in the proper order to lead them to the conclusion you want them to reach. And it's like connecting the dots. This is Jeff's connecting the dots fish, right? Is that we're about to make?
Beautiful, isn't it?
Right? So you can connect the dots this way. We've all played this game, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And when you play this game, what happens? Connect 1, 2, 3, 4, and you go in order, right? But you can be a little creative. Put a little depth in the fish. Right, this is how Jeff would do it, and then this is how I would do it.
That's how Ross would do it.
I like to be different.
Yeah.
Right? Artsy. Okay? So now I want to get to 5 storytelling techniques. And there's a million ways to tell a story. It's infinite because the art of it is how you look at it and see it. But we wanted to give you 5 templates. And what's going to happen here is we're going to show you the beginning of a wedding film. And we're going to show you that same footage in all of these different stories. That we're going to take the footage and re-edit it. We're not going to shoot anything different. We're just going to re-edit it in a different order, and it's going to tell a completely different story. And that's a concept you have to understand because as you're an editor, you can edit a story, look at it, and say it doesn't work. That's happened to me a million times, where we look at it and say, no, try again. And you can use these templates, as I like to call them. We gave them little names. And you can try these with footage, and you can make different stories with them.
Yeah, like Ross said, you can tell a story in an infinite number of ways, but if you can start out with a few ideas, we've given you 5 here, probably a lot more. And then when you are analyzing and discussing and creating your story, either if it's a project you're doing with yourself or you're doing with a client, a web commercial, a birth announcement, even a wedding, you'll have 5 things that you can already consider. What's going to make this the most interesting? And I think a lot of you out there, when you saw the chess piece, right, you saw the videographer version, camera on a tripod, and then you saw the filmmaker version. It was really eye-opening. We found so many people in our program as we went throughout the US and Canada were really struck by wow, how different this is. I think you're going to have the same reaction when you take exactly the same footage and you recut it in 5 different ways and how it changes the story and changes the way things feel. So let's go in and talk about those.
So you want this?
Yeah, you can give it to me.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about linear stories.
So it's telling a story from beginning to end as it happened. And with each one of these, we're going to let you watch it, and then we're going to discuss when to use linear, kind of what the highlights of each of these are, and when it's a good idea to use this as the particular technique. So let's watch. This is the intro to one of our wedding films. This isn't the exact intro. No. What we're going to do is we're going to start simple, beginning to end, and we're going to work our way up into more complex ways of telling the story. And the very last one you see is the one that was actually used on the wedding film. So let's go ahead and watch this, and then we'll talk about it.
Thank you for making our day even more meaningful, our circle of love even more complete. Hey, Ro. So I just witnessed the best speech session / slideshow ever. My face hurts because I laughed so hard. It truly is a testament to how much I love you. I am so excited to marry you. I hope you like this gift. I picked these things out because I thought you'd look beautiful wearing them. We made it. I love you so much. Sean. Oh, it's so pretty.
So, does that work? Did it work for you guys?
It was all right.
Yeah, it was exactly perfectly put. It was all right.
You know exactly what happens, right? He buys the gift, then he gives her the gift.
She opens it, and really, at the end of the day, there's what's interesting about that is because it is okay. And my criticism of that would be, if I was critiquing that, it would be just what Jeff said. He buys the gift and she opens it. Those are the only two things that happened. So why do we need to watch it for 1 minute and 47 seconds for that to happen? We could have watched it in 30 seconds and seen that happen. So that's an important thing, because when you change the way a story unfolds, time becomes irrelevant. And we've seen this in television and movies, that time can be played with so much. You see when they're trying to defuse the bomb in a certain movie, and it's like the 10-second countdown, but it takes like 13 minutes in the movie for that 10 seconds to happen. Time is so slowed down because the filmmaker controls time. But like, I don't know, in the last episode of Breaking Bad, spoiler alert, they did that time lapse where it was like 4 months worth of action happening in like 30 seconds. So time becomes no longer a factor because you control time.
So when do you want to use linear? Well, sometimes reality is just that good, and there's no reason for you to dress up the story. Remember, the whole point of using different storytelling techniques, using shot sequencing, is to heighten reality, make it better. In this case, I don't think we would use this, as we talked about, as our way of doing it, because it was a little slow, it dragged on a little bit, but sometimes reality is that good. And the best way for a particular situation could be to tell it from beginning to end, but you've got to make that determination as the filmmaker. With all of these, we would like to talk about how you play with the audience and create a level of intrigue or interest in your film. In this case, the best time to use something that's linear is where the story itself is so intriguing, there's not much you have to do to dress it up. So if you find that your film maybe isn't quite so intriguing, told linearly, then we'd use another technique to do that.
Okay, so let's move on to
backwards.
Backwards.
So this is where you tell a story by showing the ending first, then you work your way all the way back up to the beginning. Let's look at the exact same footage that we just saw, but arranged in such a way that we're using the backwards technique.
Thank you for making our day even more meaningful, our circle of love even more complete. Hey, Ro. So I just witnessed the best speech session / slideshow ever. My face hurts because I laughed so hard. It truly is a testament to how much I love you. I am so excited to marry you. I hope you like this gift. I picked these things out because I thought you'd look beautiful wearing them. We made it. I love you so much. Sean. Oh, it's so pretty.
So, did that work? You think yes, you think no, you think yes?
Partially.
Partially?
Yeah.
I'm gonna side on the side of no. Okay, I don't think that works, and here's why. When you're telling a backwards story, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. So essentially, in that film, the interest and the story should have been his journey to buying the gift, because we spoiled the point in the beginning, so the point can't be what's inside the box anymore. Now, had he robbed the jewelry store at gunpoint, that would have been amazing. That would have been how you tell that story.
That's the time you tell it backwards.
Yeah,
that's right.
So, you know, like going back on the Lost reference again, as you can tell my bitterness is oozing from me.
Because
the Lost thing is they revealed this big reveal at the end of the show that they built up for 6 years, right? And then people were disappointed. People were let down. But had they gave us the point in the beginning of the show, and really Lost was all about the journey of how you got there. That's the genius in the show, and that's why second time around you watch it, you appreciate it a little more, because you already know that the ending's not going to fulfill you, and you appreciate the journey. So when you're doing a backward story, when that light bulb should go off to telling it backwards, you got to think to yourself, it's not about the point, the obvious point of the story, it's about the journey of getting to the point that would make that story interesting.
Yeah, that became a film about the gift buying, which of course in this context wasn't nearly as interesting as the gift opening, but we can now and heighten it even more. The teaser, okay? The teaser technique is where you show the beginning of the climax, cut the film before the climax ends or happens, start at the beginning, and then work your way back up to the climax. So let's go ahead and watch this, talk about when it's effective to use, see if we can't create something a little bit more interesting from the footage we've already seen.
Oh, it's so pretty. Oh. Thank you for making our day even more meaningful, our circle of love even more complete. Hey Ro, so I just witnessed the best speech session / slideshow ever. My face hurts because I laughed so hard. It truly is a testament to how much I love you. I am so excited to marry you. I hope you like this gift. I picked these things out because I thought you'd look beautiful wearing them. We made it. I love you so much. Sean.
So at the beginning of that, even though you'd seen it 2 times and knew what she was getting, when she goes, oh, it's so pretty, and then it cuts to him walking the dog and then going, to buy it and everything, didn't you kind of feel a sense of anticipation? What is she going to be getting? What is she going to be getting? That's how a teaser is effective and helps to create more intrigue in your story.
Did that work? Mm-hmm. That one works. That one works. It works well. And any of you watch the show Breaking Bad? Okay. So I always like to make this reference because it's got the best teaser I've ever seen in my life. So if you haven't seen Breaking Bad, this is going to be a plug for it. Watch the pilot of Breaking Bad, and it starts out with him looking into a handy cam and he's saying goodbye to his family, and you have no idea what's going on, but for some reason you want to keep watching, and then that's it, boom, you're locked into the greatest show ever made. And it happens that quickly, and I found it so amazing. I've watched that pilot 100 times because the idea of a teaser is to take something from a pinnacle point right before the climax happens, put it out of context in the beginning. So what happens when it's out of context? It's something that's supposed to be intense, Okay, so like her reaction to the gift, of course it's a wedding, so it doesn't have the same intensity as Breaking Bad, obviously, I'm not comparing. But you're supposed to take something where she says, oh my God, it's so pretty. And your first reaction should be, what is so pretty? That's the idea. And the moment you ask that question in your mind, you're going to finish out the film. Whether you like it or not, whether you think it's boring or not boring, you're gonna wanna know what's in that box. Just like when he looks into that camera in Breaking Bad, you're like, what is he doing? And you just, that's it. You're watching the show, and then once you've made it through, and the whole idea is, if you show the beginning of a climax in the beginning of a film or something out of context, and you spark that curiosity, the whole rest of the film, if you notice, it was linear. And it got back to that point. And what happens psychologically in your mind to a viewer is when you see the beginning of that climax happen again for the second time, it's relief. It's like you're rewarding yourself. So you're saying, here it is. It's a double climax. It's the climax of the film you're watching, but it's also a climax for you in your mind, because you're finally gonna put what you saw in the beginning in context and see what it actually means. And it's, you know, it's almost like worth rewatching certain things again to see how they unfold.
How many of you think that was more effective than just the linear technique? Yeah, so keep this in mind, because this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to lead you into ideas and ways to take a film and create a more interesting story from exactly what you've already done. Like Ross filmed what he had filmed, right? If you don't understand storytelling, you may just string that together in a linear fashion and you'll have something presentable. But one change, just putting a little teaser on the end, heightened the level of intrigue and interest in the film. Now let's get into some even more complex ways of doing this. Let's talk about the sub-story. We like to call this the vehicle technique, because it's kind of two stories in one, but the secondary story acts as a vehicle to move the main story from point A to point B. So everything you're going to see in here has been contained in the others, but we're going to arrange things in such a way that the sub-story, the card, will end up moving the story forward to understand what happens with the overall climax. So let's watch this, and we'll talk about it.
Thank you for making our day even more meaningful, our circle of love even more complete. Hey Ro. So I just witnessed the best speech session / slideshow ever. My face hurts because I laughed so hard. It truly is a testament to how much I love you. I am so excited to marry you. I hope you like this gift. I picked these things out because I thought you'd look beautiful wearing them. We made it. I love you so much. Sean.
So did that work? Better than the teaser? Worse than the teaser?
I like the teaser better.
Like the teaser better? Like the teaser better?
Yeah, I liked not seeing the jewelry until the final reveal.
Okay. What did you notice about that one?
There was other stuff.
That was different than the other three, besides the extra footage.
I don't know, I felt a little bit like there was more purpose to showing the shots of him getting the card. I mean, obviously it narratively explained it, but it made it more emotional to have her reading the card while he's picking it out.
Right. Anyone?
It still seemed linear, just both of the stories were being done at the same time.
It's too linear.
Yeah.
Time.
Yeah.
It was half the length, maybe even a third of the length as all the other ones. That was only 37 seconds, 47 seconds, I think it was. And what the sort of sub-story idea is that the letter comes underneath and then everything else gets built on top of it. So you say something, you show it. Show, don't tell. Or in this case, we're showing and telling simultaneously. We're giving you a point and showing the visual that goes with it, which condensed the time. It wasn't gift buying, gift opening, okay? It was card reading, and then everything that she talks about was in there. And then you see when she starts to open the card, you show him buying it. When she's like reading it, you show him looking down at it, sort of concept of him thinking about it. And these are the visual storytelling things that we're trying to do. And for me, it's too short. For me, the reason why I don't like that as much as I like the teaser or the next one we're about to do, which is the one that we ended up actually using, is because it doesn't give you enough time to sort of get that emotional impact. Had it been the first time and not the fourth time you watch it, you need time to sort of process what's going on. And that's why I always say the whole stand-up comedy, analogy is, it's really important to understand how much time the viewer needs to react to certain things. And that just comes with doing it enough and seeing. It's a great educational exercise to make a film and put people in front of it and watch them watch it and see how they react, see how long the reactions are. And the more you do that, the more you're going to get a sense of viewers' reactions, and then you'll be able to determine length. So,
yes.
I just thought I would share a bit of what the internet's saying. So we have Kali, excuse me if I'm saying your name wrong. Now it's a wedding highlight film instead of a separate short film, was her opinion. So nice, but not a different version of the same footage, so it's hard to compare. Chris Hanlon said he preferred the teaser.
Seven Blue Rose said that he still prefers the backwards so far, and Clement for you, I like the first few seconds of the sub, but the teaser is the way to go. So it's interesting to see everyone's different opinions.
And everyone's going to have a different opinion. So also when you're taking opinions of filmmaking, you have to take them all with a grain of salt, because I always say to Jeff, if you show somebody a film, 50 different people, they're going to have 50 different, reactions. They're going to get 50 different comments. So it's important to listen to all of them and take them in and see how to incorporate them, but also stay true.
I would be very interested, though, to know what everybody feels. So if y'all could gauge this after seeing the final one, because I think, obviously, this last one that we're about to show really brings everything home. You make the most out of your footage this way, and this is intercutting. And that's where you have multiple stories happening simultaneously, and you're cutting back and forth between them. They all move towards a common climax. So it constantly is switching your attention and kind of having you put on hold what you were watching while you watch something else, and then that is put on hold, and then you watch something else. It really is an effective way to create intrigue and interest in your film. Let's watch this done with the intercutting technique.
Thank you for making our day even more meaningful, our circle of love even more complete. Hey Ro. So I just witnessed the best speech session / slideshow ever. My face hurts because I laughed so hard. It truly is a testament to how much I love you. I am so excited to marry you. I hope you like this gift. I picked these things out because I thought you'd look beautiful wearing them. We made it. I love you so much. Sean.
Does that work? Is that the best one?
Yes.
Here's what's happening there. Okay, and what I find this so interesting, because the gift buying and the wrapping of the gift is absolutely 100% meaningless it is irrelevant. If I pull every single shot of him buying that gift and wrapping the present, the story is going to be the exact same thing. But here's what happens, and why I said the sub-story one was too short, is because once you start to properly intercut him wrapping the gift with her opening it, and like the moment he sticks his finger into the bow, she's pulling the wrapping paper off, it builds the anticipation for what's inside of the gift. And you're taking two sort of mediocre moments, as we saw with the linear and the backwards, that them by themselves, just in order, they're okay, but they're not what that is. And the reason why that works is because you're taking two mediocre moments, fusing them together to draw out the climax of what's inside the gift. So you're giving meaningless footage emotional impact by putting it in a certain spot. If that makes sense. And you see this a lot in movies where scenes will intercut back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And the idea of that is they're probably originally shot linear. Well, they're definitely shot linear. And they're longer. They're usually longer, and they pull pieces out, the pieces that they need to sort of, build those moments. So it's when you take two or more moments and combine them into one moment, like I said. And then a lot of what I think intercutting is inspired by two mediocre moments fused into one really great moment. And then you want to alternate stories, keeping the viewer sort of, I like to say, keeping them on their toes. Because when you're intercutting, it's not obvious. Linear, you can just kind of sit back and just absorb. But when you're intercutting, it bounces so much that you have to follow along, which keeps the viewer more engaged, which is very important. And then it makes continuity less relevant. So, where she is, if you go back and watch that film again, all of them actually, what you'll notice is that if you in your mind play out how long it takes to open a present and how long it takes to wrap a present, that's not real time. So when we cut away from him wrapping the gift, so much time passes for when we go back that where he is in the process does not register with you as a viewer. So you don't say, well, wait a minute, that last clip we just went to was 8 seconds and he just wrapped that entire present in 8 seconds. That doesn't make any sense. You never said that to yourself in your mind. So that's the idea, is that the continuity of time, as we've been saying, is irrelevant. You can pass through time. And then, of course, intrigue is created by seeing how the stories intersect with each other.
Now, when you use these different techniques to heighten the awareness of your story, you're going to find that you have a lot more power and control over how interesting what you're telling is when you start to take footage, use your wide, medium, close-up, and B-roll, but go between different parts in a story. If you'll notice, in the final version, there were several shots of the couple together on the street, things like this, and that allows you to go from one part of the story to the other and connect the dots by using B-roll and then use your wide, medium, and close-up. Let's talk a little bit about the wide, medium, close-up. Do you notice when she's reading the letter, what kind of shot is used on her?
Close-up.
Why?
That's the effective one.
It's emotional.
Mm-hmm.
You think that was an accident?
Actually, it was an accident.
No. And when she's sitting down getting the gift, there's a wide, so you have the whole context of the room and everything. So the point that I want to make here is that when we tell stories, when we film stories, okay, we can always make something more effective through editing. I have come to Ross a number of times where I've filmed something myself and I've put it together in a linear way, and I'm left very strongly with this feeling that it's so literal, right? I'm watching this and it's so literal, and that's not interesting. We had a slide earlier that said play games with the viewer. It's a game between the filmmaker and a viewer. Give them mysteries and clues. When we just give something to somebody straight, it's not nearly as interesting as if we are asking people to be participatory, participants in the film. And simply by editing in a different way and using a different storytelling technique in the order in which you're showing things, you can make them a lot more of a participant in your film instead of just an idle viewer.
Yeah, and he made the point about the close-up of her, reading the letter, and part of that is, yes, I want to show the close-up of her reading because that's where the emotion happens, but where it really rings true is when he's buying the card, so I have a shot from outside the window of him picking the card. You can clearly see the action. When she starts to read the card, I show that close-up shot of him. You can't really see what he's doing with his hands. All you see is an intense look from him. And me as the filmmaker, because I'm arranging the clips in such a way, I'm essentially visually telling you that when she's reading that card and you look at his facial expression, he's thinking about what she's reading. And that's sort of designed to make you feel that way. Same thing for when it's a wide shot of it's a 2-wide shot of the jeweler and then him, and then it sort of rack focuses to him and he's got that kind of plain expression on his face and it's a profile shot of him. It goes from a medium shot, 2-shot of them to a close-up of him without actually changing viewpoints. And that's where it really gets tricky, is you can sort of change the perception of a shot in mid-shot. And because I put it where it's supposed to go in the story as far as what she's saying, I hit the emotional impact right as it goes to the close-up of him. So it's not just shot selection of what you shoot, but also shot selection and shot placement in editing.
When I had a project where we did a tour earlier last year. It's called the Creative Design Tour. Judy Host, she was here on Creative Live just a couple of weeks ago. And when we were going to do the trailer for that, Ross wasn't able to be involved because he had some other projects he was working on. So we went ahead and filmed that. I went ahead and filmed that with our assistant Ben, and it was just very literal. When Ross got a hold of the footage, he changed the order of it so much that it became...
You're leaving out a big part of the story. Come on, man.
Go ahead.
So I get this phone call at, I want to say it was like midnight. So I was watching Celtics on DVR delay. By the way, did any of you bring any Celtics tickets as a bribe? No?
Already here.
No door prizes for you. So I get this phone call and Jeff says, we filmed a trailer today for the creative, and that's my favorite thing to edit is trailers. I love to edit trailers. So he calls me and he says, listen, we came up with a story, we liked it, we filmed it, we edited it, and it's exactly what we had in mind. It's just not good. And
seriously,
why? Why is it not good? And then after I had to give him a little moment to say, so now you have a little bit of appreciation for what happens on the editing board, don't you? And I said, all right, send me the footage, throw it on the server. It was about 40 gigs, so I copied overnight. And then I got a hold of it, and I felt like, and it's because Jeff doesn't do it as often as I do, and our assistant doesn't do it as often as I do, it felt what I see when I see a student film. And it's showing everything literal. It was too literal. You know, if I had a shot where I'm here, right, and part of the film was me walking over to this chair and sitting down, it would be in real time. Instead of shooting a shot from the front and the back. And how I would make that happen is 1, 2, and then I would cut to a shot from the front and I'd be over here. I would teleport, right? The person who taught me how to edit, everyone teleported everywhere. Everyone walked into the shot, out of the shot, no one walked anywhere. And anytime you saw walking in his film, it was like a miracle, right? I'm like, how do people get anywhere? And what I started to learn from that was, here's a big thing about storytelling. Humans do know things, right? So if I am showing you a shot of me walking to this chair, and I take 2 steps this way, and then I cut to another shot here, and it's 2 steps that way, nobody's asking what happened here, right? No one cares. So if I'm showing that, it's just dragging, because the walk has no symbolism to it, as opposed to a bride walking down the aisle, which does have emotional impact and does have symbolism. That walk you highlight. Now, do you show every step? No, absolutely not, because it would take too long. It takes, what, an average of 30 seconds to walk down the aisle because they're doing it all slow and graceful. You have to speed that up as much as you possibly can without ripping away the emotional impact. So what I did with his trailer, I didn't change the story. I couldn't change the footage that was shot. I couldn't do that. All I did was cut things down and move them around a little bit out of order, what they were, to make something, and then I put my edgy music on it, which is signature of mine. And then it was significantly better.
Well, I came up with a word to use to describe this process of making things more interesting. We've all heard of the word interactive. Okay, and a film's not truly an interactive experience because it's not like you're there and they are there and the two of you are going together. I have a little play on word I use to make something interactive. Interactive. And what I mean by that is, if you can get the viewer to be paying attention and active internally in his mind, in her heart, so that you're thinking and feeling and searching and therefore engaged in the film, then you've succeeded. So whenever you have your footage and you're sitting down and you're ready to start telling the story, you want to create an interactive experience where the user is doing as much work as possible to keep them engaged, not so much work that they can't figure it out. Okay, it has to make sense to them. They have to be rewarded step by step by step so they keep on being engaged. But you want them to be as active as possible internally. That should not be a passive experience for your viewer to watch your film. It should be an interactive experience. Does that make sense to everybody? So we want to show this slide and introduce this concept. This is something that Ross and I are both very passionate about. Out of order.
So where this started was, you saw the Photoshop. I don't know why it's coming up in black and white, but you saw the Photoshop Everyone trailer, and the concept started there with making education interesting, because we believe that if you're entertained, you're going to absorb the information and retain it a lot better than if you're just sitting there. You know how much I skipped school in high school? And I remember going into the principal's office, he's like, you've skipped 32 days of the 45-day marking period. It's like, all right, well, I'll make it all up. So education can sometimes be boring. So I always try to find a way to make it interesting. So after we did the Photoshop Everyone, comedy is not necessarily my genre of choice. I'm a drama guy. So when we came up with this idea of Out of Order, I said, Jeff, let's do the editing thing like we did with Photoshop, but drama style. So basically what I did was I wrote a script and we filmed a feature-length film about the invention of digitized editing, starting in 1990 and going all the way to present day. And basically my concept is I could sit in a room and I could teach you editing, all day and give you everything you want to know, or I can make a 2-hour feature film and show you why certain elements of editing do exist and how to use them. And you watch the story unfold, and it's out of order, okay? So where the concept of out of order, the play on words comes from is, lots of times when you're editing things out of order. As you can see, it's linear and non-linear. Non-linear will be out of order. You film everything out of order. Okay, so I would film, scene 35, and then the next day I'd film scene 1, and it doesn't matter because I put them together later on. You shoot shots out of order. I'll shoot shots based on where the sun is in the sky, not what's in the script. I'll shoot shots based on when does this actor have to leave and go to his next shoot, not what's in the script.
In the film you just saw, you saw her looking at the card where you could actually see the card while she was reading it, right? She's reading it. It cuts to her holding the card as if she is holding it, reading it, and then it cuts back to her face. When do you think that was shot? When it was all said and done. Yeah. Ross says, can you please hold the card up?
Yeah, you don't have to get that in real time. You just, after she's reading it, I lock in on her and I say, hold that card up. And a lot of the shots are like that.
So the idea of out of order, when you think of it, what do you think of out of order? You think of something's broken, right? We literally have a goal to change the worldwide meaning of out of order. We literally have a goal to change the worldwide meaning of out of order, so when people think of it, they think about storytelling and filmmaking. How do we make something the most effective story that we can? By presenting it out of order. What is the filmmaking process? It's done out of order. We really want people to hear the words out of order and start thinking about the process of storytelling, the process of creating and filming a story, and then creating it on the editing board. Because once it sinks in, then you've opened yourself up to an entire new world of opportunity to make not just compelling products for your business, but things that actually change lives and improve the world.
You guys have all seen the movie Pulp Fiction, right? Somewhere out there, I'm sure in the universe, is a version of Pulp Fiction in order. It won't be nearly as good. It won't be nearly as good, and the reason why it works is because certain scenes are out of order, and it's 3 stories happening at the same time, and then 3 climaxes happen. So what's really cool about doing things out of order is you can change where certain, like as you saw with the intercutting and the not just anything that's not linear is non-linear essentially. You can change where certain climaxes happen, because the films don't always have just one climax. They can have multiple climaxes, mini climaxes, which we'll get to in the next session. We'll What's going on with our viewers there? We got questions or out of order comments?
We always have questions. Always
Awesome.
have questions.
Bring them on.
All right, what have we got?
We've got Chris Hanlon from New Zealand. He asked, do you always know which technique you will use beforehand? Or do you shoot with story in mind and try editing in a couple different ways to find the most effective one?
Great question. The answer is, when I'm doing a live event, no, I don't always know what sort of technique I'm going to use, because again, those are templates, so it's not limited to those 5. I will go in with the story in mind, and then when I get to the editing board, like I was explaining to Jeff the other night, once I get control of it on the editing board, it's like a whole new thing for me, because now I have all the control. I have these puzzle pieces, and how I arrange the puzzle is going to vary. And it doesn't happen often where I have to redo it and try different things. I'll sort of see, because you have a plan of the story in mind, and then you go and you capture it, and then things alter, things evolve in the moment, and you sort of get the idea of where you're going to go while you're filming.
If I had done the birth announcement without Ross, I would have filmed the mother reading her letter, I would have filmed the daughter reading her letter, and I probably would have edited it so that the mother read her letter to the daughter, and then the daughter read her letter to the baby. If you'll recall back from watching that film, the fact that they're intercut, that they're intersecting, you're constantly going back and forth between the mother reading to the daughter reading to the baby, back to the mother reading to the daughter, makes that thing 10 million times more interesting. The fact that it's done out of order. And that's why we want everybody to think in those terms, because we tried to show you with some relatively simple footage with a wedding how different things could be. But if you'll start thinking about what we just presented to you and applying it to all the films that we've showed you throughout the day, you really can see how much putting things out of order, like the wedding film, those people didn't say those things in that order. Ross, when he cut it, would try to find connecting points between a sentence from one person to another sentence to another person and connect those things together, and you have people coming in and out in a completely different way in which it was presented at the wedding, but it becomes much more interesting because of that.
Another question?
Yep, we do. So we have a question from Fashion TV in Singapore, who's a regular here, who says, have we failed as a filmmaker if someone needs to rewatch to get the story? How do we measure or ensure that our audience gets it? How do you ensure that your audience does not get lost in what we want to tell? And how do we get them to rewatch because they want to understand the story better? So there's a lot in there.
Great. Actually, this is a great concept. Okay, and I was going to actually talk about this when we were talking about nonlinear. No, if they have to rewatch it, you have not failed. It depends on why they're rewatching it, though, will determine failure. If they're rewatching it for, whoa, my mind is blown and I didn't get it, I need to go back and rewatch it.
I want to go back and rewatch it.
I want to go back and rewatch it. Like, there's a movie called Memento. I'm sure we've all heard of it. Most people have to go back and rewatch that movie. Not because it's bad, but because it's so complex that when the point comes full circle, all you're doing is thinking back to the beginning of how it all connects, and you have to rewatch it. It's like a physical need to rewatch it. Now, if someone's like, I have no idea what the hell just happened, I gotta see that again. Chances are, if they have that reaction, they probably won't even want to rewatch it anyway. So if they are taking the time to watch it again, then usually it's probably a success because you've piqued some sort of interest to make them press play again. Or else, if it was that horrible to watch it the first time, why would they subject themselves to do it for the second time?
I would say that for the kinds of films that we're making and making for our clients, if they feel the need to rewatch it to understand something, then that's not a good sign. When you want them to rewatch it is when they were so emotionally moved by what they saw that they want to feel that again. Mm-hmm. So really, if you can make your story help them to connect with something in their own life of meaning to them, then they'll watch it again and again. The wedding film that Ross put together for my wedding, my daughter for like the first year was like, let me watch Mommy, Daddy in Italy. Let me watch Mommy. She would just keep watching it and watching it and watching it and watching it because it made her happy. Like, that's when you want people coming back watching the film so that they can experience those emotions over and over and over again.
Another question?
We do. Sharp Image says, is there enough original story? So this is kind of tying back to the tying weddings in with what we're talking about now, but is there enough original story in a wedding to make that look interesting as an imaginative or imaginary story?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which you're talking about with your wedding.
Every single person on this planet is so unique and so different. And whether it's the way that they met, whether it's what their interests are, whether it's why they fell in love, whether it's because of some sort of adversity or tragedy in their life that they overcame together, there are an infinite number of ways to take the human experience and the drama that's present in all of our lives and find a way to create something meaningful from that, especially in a wedding type film when there's a couple and there's two dynamics there and then the infinite number of possibilities that are present in there. Getting to know your client, getting to know who they are and what they like, sitting down with them, asking questions, conducting an interview type process is something that we do frequently with somebody who we're going to film, to ask them, to draw out from them what it is that's important, how they met, so that we know then how to film things in such a way or how to help create moments in such a way that draw that story out.
I like to say this, we were talking about in the pre-show about me playing poker for a living, and the two things that playing poker and filmmaking have in common is you will never run into the same situation 2 times. Like, there is no next time. Everything happens one time because there's so many variables in the filmmaking process. There's so much that changes and happens. Even if you're, reshooting a different take in a commercial, the elements are going to be different. Everything's going to be different. So that's why it's so awesome, is because, you can take that experience into your next experience, but you're not going to relive the same experience. So, there's always a way to change it. There's always a way to tell the story differently and capture emotion out of whatever.
There's a great wedding film that Ross and I saw from our friends at United Wedding down in Virginia. And the bride and groom, one of them loved Oreo cookies and the other one loved milk. And so what these guys did is they filmed him going to the grocery store buying Oreo cookies, and then in a separate time filmed her going to the grocery store buying milk. And they open the wedding film this way with, you have Oreos and milk. You don't really see the characters, you just know that they're coming and doing this. And then as they tell the wedding stories, they keep on intersecting Oreos and milk, and then at the very end of the film, the wedding film, the bride and the groom are sitting down together in a beautiful lush field, and they walk up and each hand the Oreos and the milk to each other. Something that simple.
And the story becomes about the Oreos and the milk, not the wedding. And that's one of the points I'm making about wedding films, is that the marriage itself is secondary. It's the personality of the characters that matter. I think we could take one more question and then we go to break.
Oreo and the milk stories.
Yeah, United Wedding. To look them up on the internet. It's a great film.
Cool. Well, I just wanted to expand on what you were saying earlier about the questioning and interacting with your clients. Are we going to be covering any of that later?
We actually don't, because we didn't really put a business section into this because there's so much to learn about storytelling and the actual process of filming things. So maybe another creative live experience sometime.
Excellent, love that. So just to set expectations for everyone, and we do have one more question, and then we can talk about, and then we're going to go to break. So this one, it kind of picks up on what you were talking about, though, about working with your clients, and Jab Plan ALP said, I work mainly with scripts and actors. Your videos have a wonderful sense of naturalness from the subjects. Can you share any tips on how you get good performances, quote unquote, from non-actors, so your clients?
From non-actors?
Yep, from your clients.
Ooh, this is a good question. So I come from the world he comes from. So I'm usually working with scripts and professional actors. And the best thing to do with somebody who is in front of the camera, who's not used to being in front of the camera, is to just try to get them to ignore the camera. And that is the best way. And a lot of times, I'm uncomfortable in front of the camera. Maybe you can tell, maybe you can't tell. But it's good for me as a director and a filmmaker to know what it's like to be in front of a camera, so that you can convey that to people who are in front of the camera every day and who are never in front of the camera. And a lot of times, like, I was just making a documentary, and it was a series of interviews, and I'm a tough interviewer. So I put the clamps on when I'm interviewing. So what I did with every single person who I interviewed was I turned the camera on, I rolled, I had the lights, and I said, let's just do a preliminary interview. and they don't know it's recording. And then we do the interview, and then they say, all right, well, I think I'm comfortable, I think I'm ready. And then I say, well, it's done. It's like, you know, it's like the shot when you're a 5-year-old. It's like, when am I gonna get the shot? It's already over. So the idea is to just make them try to forget the camera is there.
And a lot of what we'll do is, because Ross knows that we need this shot and this shot and this shot to shot sequence, a wide, medium, and close-up, you know, one over the shoulder or the angle. When they see us coming in there and saying, you just do your thing, I'm going to make a shot from here, a shot from here, a shot from here, so I can build the story. They feel very comfortable and relaxed knowing that whatever it is that we're going to do, we're going to piece it together. And Ross will frequently say, look, don't even worry about what you're going to do or what you're going to say, because what you're going to see when it's all said and done is nothing like what's going on right now. And so telling them that you're taking control of the storytelling process, and if there's a mistake, if they're nervous, if they don't say something right, they're going to be able to literally, we're going to be able to get rid of that on editing and still make that story compelling. There's no pressure on them. They don't have to perform. And that helps people be a lot more natural.